Thanks for joining us on the news. I am Elizabeth Omori. Now let's take the headlines. Stakeholders brainstorm on ways to combat all forms of insecurity across the country. International Monetary Fund applauds ongoing agricultural reforms in Nigeria. Plus, federal government inaugurates Project Steering Committee on Management of Chemicals for the country. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now let's begin with security. The federal government in frontline states of Katsina, Zamfara, Sokoto and Kaduna states say they are ready to fight banditry with renewed vigor and determination. This commitment was brought to the fore in a town hall meeting in Katsina aimed at tackling insecurity in the various states. Zamfara and Katsina states in the northwest are the most affected by banditry, hence the renewed commitment by their governors to tackle the challenge.
We are recording a lot of successes on this equipment that we have purchased, and we are to give it to each of every local government in Zamfara state.
Sokoto is one of those states that has already passed the law to capture and make sure that all of these emerging trends in criminality are properly captured and punishments are accordingly prescribed. We have passed the law. I have long signed the law, the bill into law.
If we had started the way we are doing now, I think what we started in 2016 and 17, I think we wouldn't have seen the resurgence of what we saw in the last 3 or 4 months.
Now to the Senate. The Senate has received executive
requirement of critical arms, ammunition and equipments for the armed forces.
Be assured that this is not just a talk shop. It's all the contributions, all the suggestions will be brought before the Federal Executive Council, and the affected ministries, departments and agencies will take this.
Now to the Senate. The Senate has received executive communication from President Muhammad Buhari requesting legislative approval of 10.069 billion naira to Kogi State. The letter explained that a refund was part of National Assembly's resolution for the federal government to settle inherited debts and contractual agreement with states. Meanwhile, Senate has passed a Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contract Amendment Bill, which seeks to introduce a new fiscal regime that will ensure that Nigeria's share is adjusted to reflect current realities, thereby increasing its share. The legislators urged the federal government to declare state of emergency on federal roads and inject more funds into the sector. It also mandated its committees on petroleum upstream and other related committees to investigate alleged non-remittance of 5% user charge on pump price of petrol accruable to the Federal Road Maintenance Agency. Now to other matters. Nigeria is fully cooperating with the International Criminal Court preliminary examination into issues related to insurgency in the Northeast to ensure the process is forthrightly concluded. The Vice President said this when he received a delegation from the International Criminal Court ICC, led by its prosecutor. Discussion at the meeting centered on Nigeria's support and cooperation with the Office of the Prosecutor at the ICC, and the Vice President emphasized that the Nigerian government remains committed to its obligations under the Rome Statutes. In the same vein, the International Criminal Court prosecutor, Fattah Bensouda, noted that since the court started the preliminary examination, it has the full cooperation and support from the Nigerian government and authorities. Other top government officials at the meeting include the Director General, Department of State Services, and the Solicitor General of the Federation, as well as the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Justice, Dayo Akpata. And out to environment. As a development and industrializing country, Nigeria is set to be a major importer and consumer of chemicals for manufacturing and industrial processing. Exposure to and misuse of these chemicals often result in fatalities. Hence, the inauguration of a project steering committee on sound management of chemicals by the Ministry of Environment. Onenge Fineface has details.
Manufacturing and industrial processing are said to be activities that utilize chemicals and produce toxic byproducts and wastes. These are said to have adverse effects on humans and the environment. In recognition of the importance of sound management of chemicals, Nigeria became signatory to various chemical-related multilateral environment agreements. Consequently, the country is pursuing legal and institutional infrastructure to achieve better management of chemicals usage.
That I formally inaugurate the Project Steering Committee for the UNEP Special Program for the good of our people and the environment. You are hereby inaugurated. The program provides support to developing countries and countries with economies in transition to strengthen and enhance their institutional capacity for chemicals and waste management with a view to facilitate implementation of the Basel, the Rotterdam, the Stockholm and the Minamata Conventions, and the strategic approach to international chemicals management at the national level.
The committee comprises representatives from the Ministries of Environment, Health, Agriculture, Trade and Investment, Finance and Labour, with support from the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITA. In Abuja, Onenge Fineface, NT News.
From environment, we now move to the judiciary. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed its constitutional role of administering justice in the interest of Nigerians, not to selected individuals or groups. A statement by its spokesman, Dr. Akodo Festus, says as soon as the Presidential Election Appeal Panel to adjudicate on the appeal of the PDP and its candidate is constituted, it shall be made public. It acknowledges the falsehood being peddled by the coalition of united political parties, emphasizing that the organization is not an alternative Supreme Court of Nigeria. The statement condemns in strong terms the drama exhibited by the coalition of united political parties on pending appeal before the Supreme Court. It warns that a sensitive issue like presidential election appeal should not be trivialized and reminds the meddlesome interlopers of the independence of the judiciary as an arm of government. Now, Nigerians are rapidly embracing the recent advances in the financial sector to address its attendant legal challenges. A workshop was organized in Abuja for judges in the country. Olabode Arewa reports.
Statistics from the Central Bank of Nigeria put the current level of financial inclusion in the country at 63%, as more people use technological tools for transactions. Judges and bankers in the country converge on Abuja to examine the legal hurdles hampering the effective use of innovation in banking.
The question which we cannot evade, however, remains whether our banking laws are relevant in light of the recent trends and developments in the banking sector, or is there any urgent need for law reform?
This development will require, more than ever before, a robust, well-prepared, futuristic, competent, efficient, and legal regulatory environment to withstand the possible challenges without necessarily stifling creativity and innovation.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, says that while the current regulatory instruments on banking could address some of the identified legal loopholes, judges must take stronger actions against financial infractions.
The speedy resolution of financial dispute is an economic development catalyst, as investors and other financial institutions will remain confident that their investment are safe.
Regulatory frameworks for financial technology, data protection, cybersecurity, and consumer protection are some of the issues for discussion at the 3-day workshop. In Abuja, Olabode Arewa, NTA News.
Still on economic matters, global growth is projected to pick up to 3.4% in 2020 from 3% in 2019, following projected recovery in our group of emerging economies. Lia Kachung Babatunde reports that the International Monetary Fund also applauded ongoing agricultural reforms, but advised that Nigeria works on lifting per capita growth to achieve government's desire to lift millions out of poverty.
The last 3 quarters of 2018 saw a sharp slowdown in growth. Tensions between the US and China, financial market sentiments and weak manufacturing activity are the heart of the decision by the IMF to lower forecasts for the first half of 2019. Growth is expected to moderate in 2020 and beyond for a group of systemic economies comprising the United States, Euro area, China and Japan, which together accounts for close to half of global GDP. The fund's chief economist, Gita Gopinath, says to rejuvenate growth, policymakers should unwind the trade barriers and reduce geopolitical tensions. Monetary policy should remain accommodative, but it has to align with fiscal policies.
If growth were to deteriorate more severely, an internationally coordinated fiscal response tailored to country-specific circumstances may be required. While monetary easing has supported growth, it is essential that effective macroprudential regulation be deployed today to prevent mispricing of risk and excessive buildup of financial vulnerabilities. For sustainable growth, it is important that countries undertake structural reforms to boost productivity, improve resilience, and lower inequality.
Drawing from the Article 4 consultation report of the IMF's visiting team to Nigeria and the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the fund is optimistic purposeful diversification is key to changing the status of many Nigerians.
From strong agricultural production early in the year, but growth is not high enough to lift the per capita growth into positive territory, as Vita said. So for some time now, we've been emphasizing the need for a comprehensive package to lift growth. One element of that will have to be stronger non-oil revenue mobilization. Nigeria has one of the lowest rates of revenue in the world, which was hit hard by the drop in oil prices. That is essential for the country to be able to spend more on priorities such as social safety and infrastructure.
The fund is calling for more deliberate efforts in boosting trade ties between African member nations. It is adding that more jobs would have to be created on the continent in the medium to long term, given the demographics that clearly show who would have to be engaged in the bark of poverty reduction. From the IMF headquarters in Washington, D.C., I'm Leah Katung, Babatunde, NTA News.
And for more financial reports, let's now join Oninge Fine Face on Business News.
On Business News today, Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele is appealing to members of the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, rice merchants and distributors not to increase the price of rice following border closure. Emefiele said borders were closed to promote the growth of Nigerian economy and to ensure that the country attains food self-sufficiency in rice value chain for the benefit and well-being of citizens. Imported rice, it disclosed, contains harmful chemicals used for preservation. The CBN governor also dissuaded rice millers and distributors against holding the produce to induce rice price increase, which would only bring hardship to Nigerians. Chairman Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, Peter Dama, assured the CBN governor of the support of the association for the federal government's action on border closure, which will stimulate improved production of rice and discourage smuggling and dependence on imported food. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has advocated the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement among African countries with a view to deepen trade growth and regional integration. Chimobi Walter Nnaji in Washington, D.C. reports that this was during the World Economic Outlook for 2019, which is projected to pick up slightly amidst the trade tensions between the United States and China, as well as the sharp decline in foreign direct investments globally. That's it on the segment. I'm Onengiye Fineface.
Thank you so much, Fineface. You're watching the news on NTA International. More reports ahead when we return after the break. Stay with us.
Hey, you! And now you are the talk to. I sabi you now. It's in your mind, Abi. The person where then go help us. Baba Toros and Shangalo. Ogalekuva, Mr. Sabi. And you know if you carry last for this one.
A spear into the top corner.
We Sabi say Peking go crawl before in waka. So don't look, no help anybody. No dolly, no. So go for it. Go for football. Go for all Serie A and La Liga matches live. Go for GoTV Max.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Glad to know you're still there. To commemorate 60 years of WNTV, now NTA Ibadan, it is important to set history straight while the legends and their remarkable dates are documented for posterity. Deputy Governor of Oyo State, Ralph Olaniyan, said this at the photo exhibition marking the formal opening ceremony of the 60th anniversary celebration of television at NTA Ibadan Network Center. Correspondent Rofia Animashan Badmos reports.
This is the face of the first female newscaster on the night of 31st October 1959, Anike Agbaje Williams, and the first male newscaster, Dr. Kunle Olasope, who died recently.
And on the test transmission night, yes, it was this same studio, come on air, and welcome to Africa's first television station.
The 68th anniversary celebration of WNTV kicked off with photo exhibition of visionary leaders, pioneer management, and members of staff who served at the first television station in Africa.
What is fine on those days? You go and look at the picture. So the world is moving. NTA is moving. NTA do not allow itself to be left behind. NTA is equally moving. Technology.
Television started in Africa, in this place where we are today, 60 years ago, and that is what we are celebrating. It is a great thing.
Retired and serving staff of NTA Ibadan, newsmen and well-wishers present at the occasion reminisced the existence of television in Nigeria and indeed Africa, with the aim of informing the populace on how it all began and how television is faring today.
Yes, we have to increase professionalism, and that can only be done when we are able to spend more money on training, and when there are training institutions where we can train people.
As part of activities marking the occasion, the colloquium holds on Tuesday 15th, while the grand finale is billed for 31st October in Ibadan, Oyo State. From the premises of NTA Ibadan, Rofia Animashan Badmos, NTA News.
Now to border control, the present administration's desire to fight corruption to a halt will soon be achieved. The assurance was given at a workshop on capitalization and good practices experience sharing on promoting regular migration and fighting against corruption at West African borders. Adebola Brooksland Sunday reports.
There is no doubt that corruption at the borders has impacted negatively on the development of most developing countries, as it serves as a support for trafficking illicit drugs, weapons and other contrabands, which also puts travelers in a state of insecurity. Anti-corruption agents from the West African sub-region are in Abuja to deliberate on how to end this practice that has favored smugglers and opened the territories to illegal migrants.
We must therefore continue to intensify this action of our states.
If we stop criminals from crossing to Niger, we're helping Niger. If Niger stop criminals from coming to us, Niger is helping. So it is of regional benefit.
Key players say the partial border closure does not negate the United Nations Treaty on Freedom of Movement.
Collaboration and intelligence sharing between law enforcement agencies is very key because the world has become a global village. Most of these crimes we investigate and prosecute are across border. You know, the world has become borderless.
What has happened is to make sure that the porous borders are checked
to make sure that people enter through the official channels and that the people who are entering have the official documents.
When you have different actors working together, you encourage safe and orderly migration.
Promotion of good governance, integrity, accountability and transparency are other focus of the meeting. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
To bilateral talks now. Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Senator George Akume, says the federal government will leverage on the technology and expertise of some European nations to create job opportunities for Nigerians, especially in agriculture. The minister stated this when he received the Polish and Slovakian ambassadors to Nigeria in Abuja. Mitari Ikmen reports.
One of the core mandates of the Ministry of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs is to coordinate strategies and explore opportunities for creating jobs for millions of Nigerians, especially the youth, who make up the bulk of the population. These form the basis of ongoing consultations between the ministry and some envoys to explore areas of mutual benefits and cooperation.
When you look at this huge country with a population of over 200 million people, and that is why government is diversifying. You know, there is so much we can learn from you in the area of agriculture.
The ambassadors of Poland and Slovakia said their governments are ready to expand bilateral ties with Nigeria.
The specific areas that we would like to cooperate with Nigeria are the defense sector, agriculture, education, innovative technologies, including ones that contribute to the protection of the environment.
The concept of European Union to help to create new jobs in Nigeria. And this is the philosophy of European Union towards African country.
In particular, Nigeria hopes to domesticate the expertise of Poland in the manufacturing of tractors to boost mechanized farming in the country. In Abuja, Mitari Ikben, NTA News.
And for news trending in other parts of the globe, here is Joyce Ometu.
Many thanks for joining me on this segment of the news. Uganda is set to immunize more than 18 million children against measles and rubella. This amount represents 43% of the country's population. A statement by the World Health Organization says Uganda has experienced measles outbreak across numerous districts in the past 3 years. The 5-day mass immunization campaign funded by the government of Uganda, the World Health Organization, and other donor agencies intends to tackle these public health challenges. Meanwhile, polls have opened across Mozambique for presidential, parliamentary, and provincial elections as seen as a test of a recent peace deal between the ruling party and the armed opposition. Nearly 13 million voters are registered in the Southern African nation, though observers warn that insecurity might keep some from voting. In another development, the United States has imposed sanctions on Turkish ministries and senior government officials in response to the country's military offensive in northern Syria. Vice President Mike Pence said President Donald Trump phoned his Turkish counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan to demand an immediate truce. Pence said he will travel to the region as quickly as possible. And that ends this segment of the news. Thanks for staying. I am Joyce Ometu.
Thank you, Joyce. Now to sports. 2019-2020 Nigeria Professional Football League season set to kick off November 3. Details with Kene Imagudike on Sports Updates.